When people think about space exploration, their minds usually go to powerful nations. The United States, with its rockets and private space companies, China, pushing forward with aggressive space programs, even Russia, with decades of experience in orbit. But almost no one thinks about Luxembourg, a country so small, many people couldn't even point it out on a map. A population of barely over 600,000 people, no rockets launching from its soil, no astronauts dominating headlines. And yet, behind the scenes, Luxembourg is quietly positioning itself to control something far bigger than rockets or satellites. It is positioning itself to control the future of space mining. And if that sounds like science fiction, it's not, because the next great economic revolution may not happen on Earth. It may happen in space. The next gold rush isn't on Earth. For centuries, humanity has chased resources. Gold in Africa, oil in the Middle East, diamonds in remote regions. Every major economic shift in history has been driven by one thing: who controls the resources? But now, something has changed. Earth is no longer enough. The demand for rare materials, cobalt, platinum, lithium, is exploding. These are the materials needed for electric cars, smartphones, renewable energy systems, advanced technologies. And the truth is, Earth's supply is limited, harder to extract, more expensive, more politically complicated. So where do we go next? Space. Asteroids, the real treasure. Floating in space are billions of asteroids, and many of them are not just rocks. They are treasure fields. Some are filled with platinum, gold, rare earth elements, nickel, and iron. Scientists estimate that a single asteroid could contain trillions of dollars worth of resources. Not millions, not billions, trillions. More wealth than entire countries on Earth. Imagine one company or one country controlling even a fraction of that. That's not just wealth. That's power, global power. And Luxembourg saw this before almost anyone else did. Luxembourg's strategic move. While bigger countries focused on rockets and missions, Luxembourg focused on something else: ownership. Instead of asking, "How do we get to space?" they asked, "Who will own what's in space?" And that question changed everything. In 2017, Luxembourg passed one of the most important laws in modern space history, a law that allowed companies to own resources extracted from space. Let that sink in. Not just explore, not just study, own. This was a bold move, because space law had always been unclear. The United Nations Outer Space Treaty says no country can own space itself, but it doesn't clearly define ownership of resources taken from space. Luxembourg saw the gap, and they moved first. Why this move was genius. Think about how wealth is created. It's not just about discovering something, it's about legally controlling it. Oil is valuable not because it exists, but because someone owns it. Gold is valuable not because it shines, but because someone controls its supply. Luxembourg understood that the future of space would not be decided only by rockets. It would be decided by laws, ownership, early positioning. So while others were racing to space, Luxembourg was quietly building the legal foundation to profit from it, attracting the future. After passing the law, something interesting happened. Space companies started paying attention. Startups focused on asteroid mining, investors looking for the next big industry, engineers, scientists, entrepreneurs. They all started looking at Luxembourg because for the first time, there was a place where their ideas were not just possible, they were protected by law. Luxembourg didn't need rockets. They created something more powerful, a system that attracts innovation, a system that attracts money, a system that attracts the future. A pattern we've seen before. History has shown us this pattern again and again. The countries that win are not always the biggest. They are the ones who move first, who understand the game before others even realize it has started. Just like countries that dominated oil early, nations that built financial hubs, cities that became tech centers. Luxembourg is doing the same thing, but this time the stage is not Earth, it's space. And here's the real question. If space mining becomes real, if trillions of dollars in resources become accessible, if companies begin extracting wealth from asteroids, who will control it? The countries with rockets, or the country that wrote the rules? Because in many ways, the one who writes the rules controls the game. As Luxembourg quietly prepared itself to dominate space mining, the rest of the world was just beginning to realize the stakes. When people talk about space, they imagine rockets, astronauts, or colonizing Mars. Few understand that the real revolution may lie not in exploration itself, but in ownership and control of extraterrestrial resources. Luxembourg, a nation of barely 600,000 people, understood this before almost anyone else. But to truly appreciate the significance of this move, we must examine the global context and the emerging space resource race. The 21st century has seen an unprecedented demand for rare materials. Lithium powers electric car batteries. Platinum group metals are essential in industrial processes and electronics. Rare earth elements are vital for renewable energy infrastructure, advanced weaponry, and high-tech devices. On Earth, these resources are finite, unevenly distributed, and often politically contentious. Countries rich in these minerals hold enormous leverage. But as demand grows and supplies dwindle, humanity faces a critical question. Where will the next generation of resources come from? Enter the asteroid belt. Floating between Mars and Jupiter, billions of these celestial bodies contain untapped reservoirs of metals and minerals. Some scientists estimate that a single, medium-sized asteroid could contain more platinum than has ever been mined on Earth in human history. Trillions of dollars worth of resources are literally drifting through space, waiting for extraction. But these riches won't automatically benefit humanity. They will benefit those who control them. Luxembourg's approach was both bold and unprecedented. Rather than trying to compete directly with technological giants like the United States or China in terms of rockets and satellites, Luxembourg focused on creating a legal and financial framework that would attract space mining companies. In 2017, it passed the Space Resources Law, granting companies the right to own resources they extract from celestial bodies. At first glance, it seemed like a small legal tweak, but in reality, it was revolutionary. While other countries debated the legality of space property rights under the UN Outer Space Treaty, Luxembourg moved decisively, creating a business-friendly ecosystem where private space companies could confidently invest billions in mining ventures, knowing their profits were legally protected. This strategy is reminiscent of historical economic power plays. In the 19th century, Britain didn't just colonize India to exploit its land. It established legal and financial systems that allowed British companies to extract immense wealth with certainty and minimal risk. Similarly, Luxembourg recognized that laws and governance are more powerful than sheer size or population when it comes to emerging industries. By writing the rules early, it positioned itself as a hub for a trillion-dollar industry before anyone else even saw the opportunity. Luxembourg didn't stop at legislation. It launched initiatives to attract investment, talent, and technology. Partnerships with private space companies, funding for research into asteroid detection and extraction technologies, and international collaborations created a magnet effect. Startups, engineers, and venture capitalists began gravitating toward Luxembourg because it was now the legally safest and most financially lucrative base for space mining operations. The country, small in physical size, was effectively controlling access to the next frontier of wealth. Globally, this move has triggered a subtle but intense power struggle. Large spacefaring nations like the United States, China, Russia, and Japan are racing to develop mining technologies and regulatory frameworks of their own. However, none have yet matched Luxembourg's legal clarity. Space mining companies now face a choice: operate in an uncertain legal environment in other countries, or establish their base in Luxembourg, where property rights for extracted resources are explicit. Over time, this early advantage could translate into monopolistic control of a global market worth trillions. Moreover, Luxembourg's strategy highlights a new kind of competition. Traditional space races were about prestige, military advantage, or scientific achievement. The new race is economic and legal. Whoever controls the framework for extraterrestrial resource extraction is likely to control the flow of raw materials for the next century's most valuable industries. This is why a country with no astronauts, few rockets, and a tiny population is suddenly influencing the future of global economics in ways that superpowers can barely match. The implications of asteroid mining extend beyond wealth. Access to metals like platinum, palladium, and rare earths will revolutionize technology, energy storage, and even defense systems. The first company or country able to mine and control these resources could dramatically influence global trade, manufacturing, and strategic power balances. Luxembourg is positioning itself as the gatekeeper to this new era. Consider the broader context. Space mining is not a near-future concept. Several startups have already launched prospecting missions. NASA and the European Space Agency are studying asteroid material properties. Japan's Hayabusa missions have returned samples of asteroids for scientific study. The technology is advancing rapidly. Meanwhile, Luxembourg has made itself the legal and financial hub to capitalize on these developments. It is a strategic positioning that leverages brains, laws, and capital over brute force or rocket technology. But the competition is complex. International law is ambiguous, and disputes are inevitable. If a US company and a European company attempt to mine the same asteroid, conflicts could arise over jurisdiction, ownership, and access. Luxembourg's legal framework gives companies based there a defensible position in these disputes. In essence, Luxembourg is betting that rules and governance will be as powerful as rockets and technology in determining who dominates space mining. Finally, Luxembourg's early move also reflects a subtle geopolitical strategy. By creating a favorable regulatory environment, the country positions itself as a neutral hub that can collaborate with multiple nations while retaining control of investment flows and corporate registration. In the emerging space economy, influence over financial and legal mechanisms can translate into strategic advantage far beyond Luxembourg's borders. By the end of this chapter, it becomes clear: Luxembourg is not just competing in space, it is quietly reshaping the rules of a trillion-dollar frontier, ensuring that while other nations and companies chase rockets, it will control the framework that determines who owns space wealth. Space mining is no longer a theoretical concept. It is an emerging industry that promises to redefine wealth, power, and technology in the 21st century. While many imagine space exploration in terms of astronauts in distant planets, the real revolution will come from resources, and Luxembourg is at the heart of this change. Imagine a world where materials essential for energy storage, electronics, and green technology are no longer limited by Earth's finite supply. Lithium, cobalt, platinum, palladium, and rare earth elements could be mined directly from asteroids and brought to orbiting processing stations or even Earth itself. Entire industries could shift to operate in space, where resources are abundant and accessible to those with the technology and legal rights to exploit them. Luxembourg's early legal framework is critical here. By granting companies ownership of the resources they extract, it removes one of the largest uncertainties that could have slowed investment and innovation. Investors are more willing to fund billion-dollar missions knowing there is legal clarity. Engineers are more motivated to develop technology that works in zero gravity because their work will result in tangible profit. and nations can collaborate without fear that laws will suddenly prohibit ownership of mined resources. But the potential is staggering. Analysts predict that asteroid mining could yield trillions of dollars worth of resources annually within the next few decades. If a single asteroid contains platinum worth $25 trillion, the control of even a few asteroids would rival or exceed the GDP of the largest nations on Earth. Luxembourg's strategic foresight puts it in a position to influence this future economy, not by size or military power, but by foresight, governance, and incentives. This industry also has profound implications for humanity as a whole. Access to unlimited or near unlimited resources could accelerate technological development, reduce scarcity, and enable sustainable energy solutions on Earth. Entirely new sectors of the economy could emerge, such as orbital construction, in-space manufacturing, and energy harvesting. But these opportunities also carry risks. If control is concentrated among a few companies or countries, inequality could extend into space. The race is not just technological, it is ethical, political, and economic. Luxembourg's small size is an advantage in this context. It can act nimbly, pass laws quickly, and attract companies without bureaucratic delays. Unlike large nations burdened by competing interests, Luxembourg can maintain a clear, consistent vision. Its capital city becomes the financial and legal hub of space mining, attracting engineers, entrepreneurs, and investors globally. The challenges ahead are monumental. Mining in zero gravity is extremely difficult, asteroid composition is unpredictable, and transporting materials to Earth or orbiting stations presents logistical hurdles. However, Luxembourg's focus on governance and legal clarity means companies can invest in overcoming these challenges with confidence. While technological barriers exist, the legal and economic groundwork is already in place, giving Luxembourg a strategic edge over larger, slower-moving competitors. Furthermore, Luxembourg's approach could redefine the role of small nations in global economic leadership. History has shown that size does not always dictate influence. Just as Switzerland became a global financial hub and Singapore a key trade center, Luxembourg's control over space mining law could make it a global power broker in the 21st century. Looking ahead, the success of space mining could alter the global balance of wealth and power. Companies based in Luxembourg may hold the keys to trillions in resources. Partnerships between nations and corporations will create alliances that define the geopolitical landscape. The early movers, like Luxembourg, will have a first-mover advantage that could last decades, influencing trade, innovation, and strategic policy worldwide.